Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu salam ala Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ahlan wa sahlan bikum. Anjarama, my brothers and sisters in the Fulbeck community, and my brothers and sisters on the African continent, those in the Caribbean and the Americas, wherever you may be. And this is a short notice concerning the topic at hand, which has been, excuse me, I'm sorry, brothers and sisters. And I wanted to cover this topic today shortly because no one talks too much about it. I am a firm believer that this is one of the liberating factors of Africa is the African passport, which was approved for us around about 2019, 2020, to be disseminated among the rank and file African brothers and sisters. Unfortunately, in 2021, it was derailed, and it has not been disseminated. And this passport, this is, excuse me here, this passport is the diplomatic one. There's one that's green that it was proposed for the rank and file. And, but again, I couldn't get it. I had it one time before, but now they removed it because since they're not passing it out. But this passport here is the look of how it would be. And there was one, it was a beautiful green color that they initiated for not for the diplomatic corps, for the rest of the Africans, all of the 55 states, African states that approved it. But again, like I said, it was derailed. And so what is significance about this? You probably ask the question, so what? With a passport, what does a passport have to do with anything? The passport is the beginning of the liberation from the vestiges of colonial control. The African passport would be ours. And it'll be a vehicle for all of us to where we can now visit one another, we can fellowship with one another, and we can travel freely to see one another without visa requirements. And it would free up the continent. As you know now, the continent is not free. It's these man-made borders that were created by the Western powers. We all know the story behind that. They carved up Africa like a cake, and they said, the French, you have this, the British, you have that. The Dutch, you have this, the Germans, you have that, the Portuguese, you have this. And they divvied up Africa as though it was a piece of cake. And along after that came the Americans, who then did their thing, and they're still doing their thing on the continent today. But this is one of the vehicles of freedom, brothers and sisters, that we have to push our leaders to get implemented. And we have to break them from the vestiges of this colonial madness where an African is not a brother to another African. If the brother's Ghanaian and the brother's Gambian, they're supposed to be distrust. But then a Tubab can walk in between them, and we're supposed to trust him, and therefore we let him in any place, anywhere in Africa, no problem. But you or me, we can't go down to South Africa without a fight. If we try to go visit Mozambique, we have to fight claw to get to go see our brothers there. Our brothers from Mozambique try to go into Egypt, they can't enter the country. We have brothers who are from Sudan. they can't travel. If they go to Senegal, they most likely may be denied. And it's a fight and so forth and so on just to get into another African country. Brothers and sisters, this madness has gone on too long. And we should see it for what it is. Our African leaders should be pushed to open up these borders and to adopt a passport. It was approved. It was approved in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. 2021, it was supposed to be divvied out to all the African states. The African states would then gather it, and then the citizens will come to apply for it, and that would open it up. Here, I'm in Morocco. I meet some brothers online, and they invite me and my family to come down to Johannesburg, say for instance, to come visit them. Now I can go. I get my plane ticket. I can go to South Africa without any visa. I get visa at the they'll put a stamp visa, of course, in your passport, and so forth and so on. For your entry and then exiting the country. See, this is what our enemies don't want to see, and they have pushed this angle against us for so long, for centuries, and all the while in the European Union, they can go in and out, and so forth and so on. But here on African continent, we don't have this luxury. That passport, brothers and sisters, this passport here would free up the continent. It would give us our first step to liberation. It will give us something that is ours, and it would empower us here on the continent. We don't have a lot of things that we can say that we have joy and happiness about, because on the continent we have a lot of sorrow, we have a lot of pain, we have a lot of discomfort, we have a lot of wars, we have a lot of bickering, we have ethnic conflicts, we have Islamic insurgencies, we have a whole myriad of things. We have overseers who are overseeing our governments that should not be. Our leaders generally are not free. They cannot make decisions without the Western powers okay in the matter. Prime example of that is Uganda. They passed a stringent homosexual bill. Now they requiesce on this, and they're starting to loosen it up. You see, because of the pressures, because U.S. threatened them that they would put sanctions on them. So now they've watered down this bill. Now it's the next step is legalizing homosexuality, maybe in Uganda. This is only first step. This is what I'm talking about, brothers and sisters. We have to strengthen our leaders, or try to put the right leaders in power. It's easier said than done, because all stepped away, we know who's put in the power. We know the Western powers put our brothers and sisters in power who are catered to their needs. And one of the needs is to keep the borders closed. One of the needs is to stop this African Union passport so you and me don't get it. One of their needs is to ensure that you and me are enemies to one another. They have the need to make sure that you regard me as suspect because I'm here in Morocco. I look at you because you from Nigeria was suspect. But then when the Tubac walks in between us, I'm supposed to shake his hand. I'm not supposed to have any remorse or anything, any suspicion on him. But when another black face walks behind him and he say, "Hey, brother, how you doing? I'm from the Cameroons," I'm supposed to view him with suspicion. This passport here will stop that. So our enemies, brothers and sisters, have killed, they have sabotaged, they have sanctioned Africans who dare to even push for such things. They said one of the reasons Gaddafi was killed was he was pushing for this. And he's also pushing for the second liberating factor would be the currency. Because the Western governments realize that an African currency, one African currency in itself passed around through the country would be devastating to their markets. And Gaddafi had proposed, rahimahullah, that we had these gold coins because Africa is filled with gold. We know that. And we would have these gold coins and we would use this across, and this would be our money here in Africa. All of us would have it. So they said they killed him for this. So the two liberating factors, the passport, giving the impetus for freedom and brotherhood among us here on the continent, the next step. The thought that some African leaders who backed Gaddafi on this Rahim Allah about the currency, one currency that we would have an African currency made from gold. They nixed that by killing and sanctioning and revolts in some of these African states who did back Gaddafi on this. So these powers are continuing to divide us. It's them who created the African states today. There was no such thing in yesteryears. Before the colonial powers, we didn't have this. So, and again, under the auspices of the African is not a brother to another African. And you think about this, brother, sister, this is the truth. We have disregard for one another. We should not have that. That African passport will eliminate that. It would open up the continent and we would begin to flourish. This movement and travel should be restricted and curtailed. This is what they believe. They told our leaders that we should be curtailed, we should be spied upon, we should be restricted, and we should be disenfranchised. So that way we cannot live a decent life like they do inside the United States or in Europe. We're supposed to live in poverty, and we're supposed to have no economic base. We're not to have any hopes. This is what they have. At each step of the way, they put in leaders who back the play of the Western powers. And you notice our condition never changes. Even though we have a new bunch who's controlling us, we have the same problems as this one who preceded us. The one now who's running us is doing us the same way. He will leave, they'll put in another one who's just like the other, and we'll still have the same problems. So they deemed that this is the argument that the Western powers used. They said that it'll be a security issue if we allowed Africans to come freely to one another's country. That's preposterous, brothers and sisters. That's preposterous. Why is it that they have the freedom in Europe to go, and the EU have open borders, but we cannot? Where they say, it's okay, but we're such bad people that we can't go. I can't leave to go from Morocco to go into Sudan because I'm going to rob or I'm going to steal or terrorism or something like this. This is what they put on. But yet and still, the Tubab is allowed, and some Asians are allowed to come in and out of the continent without any fanfare. That's not right, brothers and sisters. That's not right. It's not right. The passport should be issued to all qualified Africans in the Western world as well. Now, you say, I disagree with you on that, because I know we have a divide of the Africans on the continent versus the Africans in the Caribbean and in the America, especially America, United States. And we have some that say we don't need these individuals to come over because they're Americans, they are Caribbeans, they're not Africans anymore. And I beg to differ with my brothers and sisters who have this feeling, because just like on the African continent, we have bad Africans too, okay? On this continent, we have some rotten people as well. There in Americas, we have rotten, and in the Caribbean, we have rotten, but we also have good people. And we do need these good Africans from the Caribbean and from the Americas to come into the continent with their expertise, especially from the United States. And if you say, well, no, I still disagree with you. Ask Ghana what happened when they opened up their country in 2019 for the year return. What happened? You ask the president, You see him boasting about what happened to the economy there. The African Americans have money, especially in clout. When you have 1 million travelers, do you know how much money they generated for that country? And others are now starting to see the benefit of this. The Gambia is starting to see this revenue coming in as well. Senegal is starting to see some of this. We now see Rwanda is starting to get African Americans coming in as well. We have brothers who have money is laid up in their banks, decide to come to Ghana. They built small mini malls. We had some who, one sister who had money. She came to Ghana and she opened up a taxi business where they deliver food. All types of enterprise. We have one brother who came here some years back now. He came, opened up a banana farm where he grew different bananas, and he's now shipping those bananas all over the place. He began to mix these bananas until he began to create different strains. And now these bananas are sought after. This is an African American who came in to Ghana to do this. We have another African American who went into Cote d'Ivoire, got a cocoa farm. Okay, you know, we make chocolate. The farm was not doing well. The owner, I don't know what the situation was. I couldn't remember what I read about that. He came in, he had some money. He was from Baltimore, Maryland. He came in, he had some money. He took the farm. He made a profit after 2 years selling cocoa. See, so we need this type of enterprise from our brothers and sisters outside Africa. They have it. See, they have that. So I disagree with some of our brothers here on the continent who have, they don't want to see African Americans because they're mad with African Americans. They say, look, you know, you're a Tubob. You're not African anymore. Well, yes, in a lot of ways we're not. It's not to our fault, because I was born in America. Okay, you know, I was born and raised in America, but I came to Africa because I had Africa in my heart. So I've been here almost nearly 2 decades. And so we have, and some of the brothers I've had talks with some of my brothers when I was in Sudan. I had talks a lot here in Morocco in particular. I had talked with Nigerian brothers as well. And we discussed these issues like this. And I asked them, when they know I was an American, they kind of blame me for, I said, well, look, how can you blame me? I cannot ask to be born in a certain area, but we have to look at it on the other side. Our forefathers here on the continent delivered us to the Tubob, okay, and made money off of us and sent us to the Americas. And we had to live under this, and we still live under this tyranny today. So you cannot blame me because I talk a certain way. I lived in the land of the Tubob. I didn't live in Ghana, see? So, and you cannot deny our citizenship because our forefathers and foremothers had Ghanaian citizenship. They had Gambian citizenship. They were Nigerian. They were Wolof. They were Jolof. They were Compele. They were Mende. They were Fulani. They were Tuareg. They were all of these nationalities, and the citizenships were taken from them. Now they're starting to return. So should we penalize them? This is what some of them say. They say, hey, we should sanction them. You blaming us for something that we had no control of. We were born there. Our forefathers was taken there. And so we were born in the land of the Tubob. It's not our fault. This here, again, the reparations, this would be a reparations, brothers and sisters, due to the fact that our ancestral mothers and fathers had their African citizenship removed by force. If we're giving those qualified United States, now we're not going, or in the Caribbean, we're not going to give it to every black man, black woman there, because we have enemies there inside the United States who have nothing to do with Africa. They don't want to have nothing to do with Africa. We don't want to waste a passport on them. We don't want them to have a passport in their hand that they don't want to utilize. We want to give it to those who we feel that we see that who in earnest want to come to the continent to empower it. They may come here for a year, 6 months, or whatever, and they bring with them their expertise. They come and bring tourism and so forth and so on. This is what we want. That way it frees them up as well, because the U.S. government and some of the Caribbean governments, they play games with passports today. We know that. And they will stop, and especially when they start seeing African Americans, they're starting to do this. starting to leave to come to the continent, they start to make it much tougher. They make it tougher inside the United States. Then they go to the African states and tell them to clamp down on your requirements, so you can't let these black people from America and the Caribbean come in. We see this happening today. That African passport will eliminate this. The AU rules would allow this passport to be issued to African citizens in extraordinary occurrences. As we speak right now, the bill was passed. The African passport should be issued. Okay, now we're talking about here on the continent. In time of war, like see what's happening in Sudan, you don't have time. You don't know where your passport is, or you never got a passport, and now you have to flee because of danger. These passports will be issued, and they'll be good for a limited amount of time. 6 months, it could be renewed, and so forth. Other extraordinary circumstances, people's lives. We have, say, dignitaries who were shot at or forced to leave a particular African state. Now they'll be given this passport. Say they decide to come to Ghana, for instance. The Ghanaian government would then give them this African passport, allowing them to make entry into Africa. This is what the other part of the African passport was supposed to be used for. They nixed that as well. We have scholars of Islam who, like in Egypt, you know what's happening in Egypt. They were killing a certain Islamic group there and killing them outright and jailing them. And you know the former president who was overthrown by the U.S. government, who was instrumental in overthrowing him, they put him in prison, and you know what happened to him. He was killed. Other ones were renditioned, where they disappeared. Others were killed in shootouts, quote unquote shootouts in apartments, and so forth and so on. Others left to go to Turkey and Qatar and so forth and so on. These individuals like this will be eligible under the rules to have an African passport, where they can leave Egypt and come into the Gambia, or they can come into Morocco, or they can come into Senegal and whatnot. This is what the African passport, African Union passport, was designed for. That was nixed, brothers and sisters. It was nixed. They stopped it. So now what happened, the brother who is in trouble in Tunis because they want to kill him, he has no avenue of escape. We see this now happening in other parts as well. They have no avenue of escape. If they went to a consulate and told, now there's things we call travel documents as well, where you go to the embassy, say Botswana, for instance, and you say, look, I want asylum. This was happening. They verify that you are under threat. They're trying to kill you because of your beliefs or so forth, so on. They can issue a temporary document. We're not talking about that. You'll be given an African passport that will allow you to enter into that particular country and to stay for 6 months or into a year until they renew it, or they give you some type of status to stay there permanently. This is what I'm talking about. And this is something, brothers and sisters, that how can I say, it's something that we need this, and we've had too many people don't have this access, and we need this here on this continent. We need to have more understanding within the African community. We don't have that. That passport would bridge this gap. It's important, brothers and sisters, that we have that. It's a dire need, because it's a liberating factor. You think about when you have a passport in your hands. How do you feel? I don't care what passport it is. You can go and visit a country. See, you're free. You want to go and visit, say, a relative, or you want to go visit a friend that you met, and so forth, so online, say, for instance. And you can go. This is what we're talking about here. Why can't Africans have the same feeling? Why can't we have the same feeling, brothers and sisters? We have an African passport that allowing us, it would probably curtail a lot of the activity, because we have Africans trying to leave to go to Europe, because that's the only way they can survive, because the African governments won't accept them. So they have to travel by boat. They have to do many things in order to get into Europe, when the African states should open it up for them. And they won't do it. See, so this is important that we have this. And again, the rules: civil strife, lost passports, temporary stay in African state. this African passport, this is what it's designed for. The African Union passport was designed for one of these cases like this, where you have civil strife like it's happening in Sudan, what's happening in Burkina Faso. You think about my community, the Fulani community, for instance, right now. This is not about all what's going on, because I've been talking about this, and I will continue to talk about this, inshallah ta'ala, in a couple of days, if Subhanahu wa ta'ala is willing to give me these days. But we have them who are suffering. We have a genocide essentially that's going on in the Sahel region, and Fulani are being killed. They should be able to go to some of these embassies that are there and say, for instance, and say, look, I got relatives that's sitting in Nigeria. They should be able to go there and get this African passport. They would issue this African passport so they can make entry into Nigeria. See? But we don't have that, brothers and sisters. We don't have that. We don't have the avenue. We should. The passport would elevate trade. When we have brothers and sisters with money on the continent, they now go visit and they establish business. We have a lot of brothers and sisters here who have money and expertise. They know how to make trade. And this will elevate. You see what's going to happen. We will be so self-efficient. We don't need Europe anymore. We don't need those crazy loans and stuff that they give us that we can't pay back. We'll start to become self-sufficient, especially if we have our own currency made of gold. And we have a passport to boot. What's going to happen is on that passport index that they rate the world, that passport will be one of the most powerful passports in the world. And the EU and most likely the Americas will open it up even if you have this passport. So you can enter into their country because they know that you will come there to see relatives and you will leave. They know you won't overstay, you see, because they know that you have economic ways and means and you have established something inside your country. You have your own currency. So now the EU will say, okay, now we can start letting these black people come in here because we know they're going to return back to their homeland. This is all into this freedom I'm talking about, brothers and sisters. Tourism would greatly be enhanced. We don't need to go to Japan. We don't need to go to China. We don't need to go to see Paris, France. We have so many sites here in Africa, it'll take you a lifetime to finish. We have them all over the place we can go to. And it would enhance our continent, empower it, and enrich it with our own money. And we'll see black faces everywhere we go. There will be no drive-by shootings. There will be no stop while black, shopping while black, or some interdiction because you're black. You won't have those problems. You get on an airplane, nobody's gonna be looking at you because you're a black man or black woman. You see, you'll have this freedom. You'll have this psychological advantage that you don't have in the West, where everybody looks at you with suspicion. See? So this is some of the things I'm talking about. The tourism would be greatly enhanced. However, the big caveat, the American black folk investments in tourism, brothers and sisters, we have to be honest here. You look at what happened in Ghana. You heard the president of Ghana when he talked about the following year, the revenue that was generated when he opened up his country to returning black folk. His economy skyrocketed. Okay, skyrocketed because these black folks in the United States have money. If you look at the index there, what they pay out on goods and commodities inside the United States is staggering. Unfortunately, we just don't have the businesses to back that up. We're paying the Jews, the Tubab, the Mexican stores, and so forth. We don't have those businesses. But if we took that money and we go and patronize our brothers here on the continent, and we put that money that's sitting in LA, you put that money in a Ghanaian bank, or you put that money in a Tanzanian bank, you see, and you can come and go as you please with this African passport. You imagine how it would empower us here in Africa, how this would empower the black man and black woman in America and in the Caribbean as well. This is what I'm talking about. That passport, small and looking insignificant as it is, but there's a lot of things behind it. If the African Caribbeans, the African Americans get an African passport, the benefits for us on the continent would skyrocket, as I told you. Promoting brotherhood. Now we can bridge the gap because we have many Africans still today. They've never been anywhere. All of a sudden, they see a black man come in from, say from Los Angeles, California. They listen to him. They see his demeanor, his attitude, and they, But I say this: most Africans on this continent are very receptive towards African Americans. We do have some segments that are not receptive because we've had this big gap of at least 400 years. So we have to get to know one another. But this African passport will help bridge that misunderstanding we have because of cultural drift. We were taken away from the continent and brought to Americas and lived under the two-bob system. So we have to be retrained and reconditioned again. And you have to help us here on the continent. We have to help our brothers and sisters when they do come back, to help them become African again. That's what you should do, because he is your brother. An African is a brother to another African. The African is not a brother to the two-bob. Yes, in humanity, but we're not talking about humanity, because do they consider you anything in humanity? No, they don't. 99% of them have nothing to do with us. So why should we be talking about brotherhood with this enemy? And yet we treat our brothers as enemy, and we try to do everything to cuddle up to the two-bob and so forth and so on, who spit on us, who tell us to go kiss his boots, huh? Who mistreats us in Europe when we go there. This is what I'm talking about. This passport, brothers and sisters, will eliminate a lot of that. It will eliminate a lot of that. Why do you think that the Western powers made sure that it was stopped? If it didn't work, they would care. They would say, go ahead, give the passports to everywhere you want, all the black people you want. They would laugh. But they know it would open up things here in Africa. It would bring all this money that's sitting in America and sitting in the Caribbean by black folk. They have a lot of money. You read the reports, what they generate there in the United States. It's staggering. It's staggering, brothers and sisters, what they do on the commodities there: hair, food, cars, you name it, all kind of things. The African Americans have money, especially in a big gathering. You think about this: 400 African Americans travel to Ghana. Think about how much money they spend. You see, that's just 1 week. 400 come. Say 10,000 end up coming, like what's happening in Ghana. Look at what the president said. These black people have money. That passport, brothers and sisters, will free that up, that money that we need here. It would empower us. See, but now our brothers and sisters have a hard time coming here to Africa. A lot of times we don't want them here because the governments are under the thumb of the two-bob. So they cannot offer us things. And that's a shame. This would open up borders, remove the stigma that only the two-bob is worthy of respect. When the two-bob comes in our countries, you see how people act towards him. They treat him as though he is almost a god. And we're supposed to trust him. We're supposed to do everything to adore him and to revere him. But our African brothers come in, we don't do that, huh? You notice that? We have to stop that. When we start having an African passport and you start seeing your brothers come in from other places, and I'm talking about the ones worthy. I'm not talking about the punks and thugs and stuff that's sitting in the United States. We ain't talking about them, or the Uncle Toms and so forth. We're not talking about those kind of people. We're talking about rightful Africans who want to come on this continent. You would see what would happen, because Ghana has already experienced it for 1 year. It was astonishing, the money that was generated by this small, beautiful African state. It was astonishing. It was absolutely astonishing that black people there in the Americas have that much money. And they do, brothers and sisters, and they do. Importantly, it would remove the Western power programs aimed at preventing Afro-Caribbean, African Americans from what? Retaining lost ancestral citizenship. Right now, it's virtually impossible, except for a handful, to get citizenship in Africa. How is that? And a two-bob can walk in and he doesn't even have to have many of the requirements. He is given it. The Chinese, we start to see it as well. And other Asians are getting it very easy. But you or me, we cannot get it. This we have to stop. The African Caribbean and the African American are more worthy of that citizenship because our ancestors were taken. No one can say that my grandmother and great-great-grandmother and great-great-grandfathers and uncles and aunts or whomever were taken from this continent, they were not African citizens. They were. That's why they were taken. That citizenship was taken from them. Now their antecedents are now here. How can you turn back around and tell me or any other person that had the ancestors taken that they don't belong here, and they should not have the citizenship? You know what's happening to us in the Americas. You know what's going on, what they're doing. They're shooting us, killing us, disenfranchising us. They're doing all kinds of things to us. They're still implementing many things that slavery has done. On the African continent, you can liberate many brothers and sisters who want to come here. They have money, they have expertise, they're security experts. We have bankers, we have educators, we have beautiful educators there in the United States. And also in the West Indies, we have all of that, brothers and sisters. We have all of these things. And we need that expertise here inside Africa. You give them that African passport and see what would happen. See? Oh, excuse me, brothers and sisters, excuse me. Excuse me here, excuse me. So what I'm saying to you now, brothers and sisters, is please ponder my words and think about this. And really think, and then give me your comments today or another day or whatever, and you tell me what you think. I say I got comments here. I'll get to my brothers and sisters here in a few minutes. The African passport power would increase 100 times fold over. Brothers and sisters, once we have an economic base here, I'm telling you now, every country in the world would open up for this passport because they know you have money and clout. And they know that you will return back to Africa. They know that. That's one of the conditions why we don't get the passports and visas. I mean, the visas, because they figured that we can come there to overstay. So they mistreat us. When we come in there, are you going to stay? How much money you have? They ask you all these questions because they think we're going to come there to stay there. But once we have this African passport, they're going to know we ain't there for that. They know we're going to come to visit our African relatives and go back home to our continent. See, this is what I'm talking about, why the freedom. When we have this, when this thing happens, then you'll see all the freedoms that we will enjoy, and we will start to have respect. That passport itself will give us a lot of respect, brothers and sisters, a lot of respect. The African passport would immediately instill pride in our African heritage. Now we have something. We have a beautiful passport, and it's got power behind it. Our continent is now empowered. It would instill this African heritage that we are missing today. And we will now have brothers and sisters proclaiming this history. We have some of it doing today, but most of it still don't do it because they're still ashamed because they don't understand their history. With this passport in hand, it will instill, you know, think about this, brothers and sisters. Here you were sitting over there and say in one of these racist cities there in the United States, the police killing everybody, killing the brothers all over the place, and jailing, making false reports on our children, putting them in jail, so forth and so on, okay? Making allegations against them. You come out of the house, you're stopped because you have a nice car and the 2x police stop you. Now think about this. If you had the African passport, you have a house there that's worth 300,000 US, 400, 500, a million. You sell that house and you come here to the continent. Now you don't have to put up with that crap. The minute they come after you, you say, okay, you know, I had enough. I got all this money sitting in a 2x bank. I'm going to now sell my home and I'm going to take my bank account and I'm going to go move to Ghana. I'm going to move to the Gambia. I'm going to move to Senegal. You take 100, 200, 300 African Americans to do that. Think about say each one in their bank account, say they sell their homes for, we'll say 800,000 because it's expensive in the United States. 100 of these, say, okay, we say 300. 300 times 800,000. Look at the money that is, brothers and sisters. And those people, those 300 black folk who left out of the United States, came into the African continent, say they came into Gambia. You add up that money. They have an African passport. So they didn't have to put up going through the US government for they play games with you to see, and they say, oh, you didn't pay no taxes. When you did, they can hold you for months. Even so, they say you didn't pay in 2015. He said, I did pay 2015. Now they can hold you up and you can't leave. With that African passport, you can go. And you have 300 African Americans with 800,000 in the bank. Add that up, brothers and sisters. You'll see what I'm talking about. They know that. Our enemy know that as well. That's why they're stopping this. It will give us the freedom of choice. The Tubab and those who are living in the Tubab land, you see, they have the clout of their country behind them. The Americans in particular, they can go just about anywhere they want with that U.S. passport. We want that same choice. I want to be able to sit back here in Fez, Morocco and say, you know what? I saw my Muslim brothers, I saw my Fulani brothers there in Seoul, Korea. They got all these restaurants and stores. I want to go there just to visit them and support them. Now, with this beautiful passport, powerful passport, I can go. I can make choices. My wife can turn back around and say, hey, you know what? I think next week, 2 weeks from now, let's go over to England, or let's go visit Japan, or let's go visit Madagascar. Let's go to the South Pacific and visit Fiji, which is a popular place for Black folk. That's a beautiful place, and Black folk are there. I don't want to get into that right now. But you see, you have a choice. How many choices do we have today, brothers and sisters, here on the continent? Think about this. Be honest. How many choices do you have? You can't even enter many African states alone. So how the world is going to accept you when even here on Africa, you can't even go to many African countries? We think about that, brothers and sisters, how dire need we need this passport to open up things. Another African can't go to another African state. What is that? You see? It gives Black folks something to grasp, something to yearn for, something, a dash of fresh hope. Our lives as Black folk on this earth is tough. We know that, okay? We know that. It's very tough. When you have hope now, when you have something and you have empowerment, your whole mental attitude changes. This is why the Tubab does what he does, because his mental aspects are good, because he doesn't have impediments. He doesn't have to worry about impediments. He can walk in and out of Africa when he wants. He can go in and out of Asia when he wants. We can't do that. We have all these impediments. That has to have something psychological done to us. You see? So this is what I'm talking about. I'm getting you to think, because I'm old. I'm an elder now. I've been on this earth, a long time, and I've seen a lot of things. I've traveled to many countries, brothers and sisters, and I speak other languages too. Some people who know me know that. And so I'm telling you now, these impediments have a weighing effect upon us. This passport can bring about many positive changes. The Western powers, the Asian powers, the hypocrites are steady working to keep us from materializing. They don't want us to have that, brothers and sisters. This is why we have to work on our leaders to get them to stand up now, to pull up their pants and stand up to the West and to the Asian powers and say, hey, it's enough. This is our country. We want to empower our people, not to empower Asia, because our wealth is going to empower everybody else except us here. Let me look at here, the chat here to my brothers and sisters. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brother, Bethis here, Raphael. How you doing, my dear brother? Masi, Maine, how you doing, brother? Yes, it depends on the social financial class. Many people have plenty of stamps, but most don't travel to Africa. We know this, brother. You hit it right on the head. They don't, because they have negative opinions because of what the media has done to the Black psyche in the Caribbean and the Americas in particular. They made Africa into I heard this one man, and this is not funny when I heard him. Okay, and I've heard Black folks say this to me as well. I'll go with the Black folks because we know what the Tubab is. I heard Black folks tell me, I was talking about Africa going here and there. I was living in America at that time. The brother said to me, he said, man, I heard the lions are eating us over there. Huh? See? Because they seen the movies that were generated by the Tubab. And it shows that every city, the lions roaming around, eating us. This is what he was made to believe, because there are old movies, brothers and sisters. Can you believe it? They had old movies that actually show this. They actually show lions chasing black folk through the cities. And Bill Cosby highlighted this many, many decades ago. When I was in the university, he showed this. It almost, some of it was so comical, you laughed, but you had tears. And it showed lions run through Johannesburg, show lions running through Accra, show lions running through Fez, Morocco, which is not true. And who they eat? They don't eat the Tuba. They don't eat the Asians. They only eat the Africans. This is the stuff that we were fed. So what do you think when you say, hey, man, let's go to Africa? You say, oh, no, man, I can't. I'm sorry, man. I want to live. I don't want a lion eating my family. This is what we have. So we have to be very careful of that, brothers and sisters. The American passport gives them social mobility, yes, and every country. This is important. This is very important, brothers and sisters, that have no travel stamps on their passport. This is important, brothers and sisters. When your own people, your own kindred now give you a passport, you don't have to put up with that stuff that goes on in Europe and in Americas in particular. When they can hold you, like I said before, they're doing this now. The brother, they watch they see you on the net, and they know that you're getting ready to go invest heavily in Rwanda. Suddenly, you go try to get you a U.S. passport or renew it. They come back and say, oh, you need to go talk to the tax people. The tax man said, oh, 2010, 2011, you didn't pay taxes. You know you did. Now you have to prove that you paid it. Maybe you moved. Maybe you lost the check stubs. See, now you held hostage. You can't go to Africa because they won't give you a passport. See, with the African passport, you know that you paid this. Okay, maybe they may do something to you or not, but maybe it's time for you to get the heck out of there and come and live among your black kindred here in Africa. So there could be. The black man of America has passports, but they cannot afford to travel. Yes, brother, you hit that right on the head as well. This is why I said we have certain conditions, and some of us don't have this money. That's right. But again, we don't give this passport to everybody. We give this only to those qualified, and we would have to have some mechanism to understand who is qualified to come. We don't want to give the passport to deadbeats who are not going to do anything in the continent, or they don't have money, because we don't want them coming here and looking for welfare where we start to have to do things for them. They should be able to come over here with their means in order to come here to support us. Now, we should not be here on this continent supporting them in this regard and taxing our social systems and stuff like that. No, we should not be doing that. So we have to pick and choose who we're allowed to come with this African passport, not the deadbeats, not the sister, not the hoodwink and so forth, come over here and say, I'm tired of LA. I think I want to go to Ghana. I'll get on welfare over there and I'll lay up in my new tropical home. We don't want those people here. I've said it on other talks, so we don't want that. You say, what brotherhood? The brotherhood, brother, because what I see by that is this. When you begin to bring people together who's been lost, because there's been a separation, because of slavery, and because the Tubab has made these conditions. The ones in the Americas and the West Indies, they don't know who they are. Now, you heard me say many times, they'll say things like, I'm African American, or I'm Jamaican, or I'm Trinidadian. Okay, you hear them say this. But the African part, they have never been settled. The Tubab was wicked in his way, because he said, okay, I'll take you, but I won't let you know who you are. I don't know. I won't tell you exactly who your family was in Africa. See, that's by design. Now what is happening? We have DNA. We use the technology. We have DNA, right? I found out I was Fulani. And boy, let me tell you something. It was a profound effect upon me, brothers and sisters. When I found out, that's my wife, I cried. You know why? Because I know my great-great-grandmother, because I know now what had happened. She was taken. Okay? She was taken. And then by the time she came to the shores, we know she had a mulatto baby, okay, from the slave master. So it's kind of emotional for me in this regard. I found out who I was. I was happy. I said, now I'm Fulani. I didn't, excuse my vernacular, I didn't give a damn about what the Tubab thought anymore, okay? I said, I'm African. I went over there to the courts. I didn't care what that white judge, he turned red like a lobster. I told him, I'm changing my name to reflect my ancestry. Okay, you see what I mean? This is resolve I have. The brotherhood comes after the African Americans realize he's Fulani American, he's Nigerian American, he's from Igbo people, or he's from the House of people, or he knows now he's from Sierra Leone, he's Mende, or he realized he's from Senegal, he's Mandinka, or he's from the Gambia again, and perhaps he's Wolof. So this is that brotherhood would come, and we do have brotherhood among African Americans and Africans. It's happening. It's starting because we have more coming here. We do have that. So it's in the process of working out, brothers. We've been separated for hundreds of years. So how do you think it can work in a matter of days? It takes time to foster. You failed to make Black women the most protected. Well, that's another issue altogether, brother. That's an issue. When you, I don't know what you mean. Excuse me. Hey, I'm doing a program. Okay. I don't know I don't know if you mean me. I don't know. You said you failed to make Black women to be protected. That's the issue, brother. I've talked about this in some of my other talks. About a year ago, I talked about issues about this. You can review those tapes. I can't entertain that now because that's an issue that is very, very deep inside the United States. It has a lot to do with slavery and its condition. That's in a talk all by itself. I covered that in other talks before. But yes, they are not protected. But I will say this and I'll move on to this. Brother, what can you do? When the whole system, you have racist whites and the police and the courts backing them. I can tell you now, my great uncle in 1917 was murdered by one of these two Bob bastards. They know the police behind them because they knew the people who were there, the Klan. They didn't do anything. They didn't arrest the people. And you can't, in those days, all the way up to about 1960, you could not convict a two Bob in a court when he killed and lynched a black man. Or if he ravished a Black woman and gave her a mulatto baby, you could not take them to court. So how can we protect our women when the system is designed that we had no power? And if a Black man did stand up, he was lynched or he was jailed. You couldn't put your hand on the two Bob. So those are issues we have to, you know what? Wait a minute, I see this guy here. I think this guy, look what this guy has wrote here. You know, if you're still here, my dear brother, let me say something to you. My African ancestors and the Africans on this continent would be insulted by what you just said. We have our own clothes here in Africa. So why should I dress like a Tubab? I'm not Tubab. I'm an African. And I'm Fulani on top of that. And my heritage stretches here in Morocco. This is native dress for Fulani people, for Tuareg people, for Amazigh people. This is our native dress. I wear clothes. I had a talk on this particular thing as well. So if you are listening to that, you take that, okay? And you should not come on this show because this is for Black folks. This is not for Uncle Tom, house Negroes like you, if you are that, or a woman, or whomever you are. This is a talk here designed to empower us. When you're talking about taking off this costume, this is our clothes here in Africa. You must be Tubab. Okay, I'm blocking this guy. All right, let me move this. Let me move this guy off here. I got a feeling this guy is a Tubab because I've been. Let me tell you something, brothers and sisters. I've had the last couple of weeks when I've been talking about the Fulani, I was threatened. Okay, the other day I turned it into YouTube. I was threatened. This is what happens when you disturb the powers to be. He was upset because about what I said about Burkina Faso being 40% under the powers of the insurgents. He said that we were going to take care of the terrorists, and you and them will suffer the same fate. What was that? I reported it. And they've been saying other things. I have some of them thinking I was a slave. They ordered me not to talk about things in Sudan. See, so this type of stuff like this, you know what I mean? We have to ignore it because, and we have to take it for what it is. These kind of people like this, they only looking to start something. Don't be fooled by these people, brothers and sisters. You are Fulani, we have our dress. You come here on the African continent, you heard my speech talk about this, you dress like you're African. You're not in LA no more. So why are you going to dress like you're in LA? You're here on the continent, we have our own clothes. We wear ekbadas here. In the north, we call these daraha. And here in Morocco, especially in the south, we have that. See, we have beautiful African clothes that rival any clothes that are made in Europe. So why should we imitate them? We're tired. We should be free. We don't have to imitate them. I'm a Muslim on top of that. This is proper dress for a Muslim, going back to the 7th century. And let me tell you something else, and I'm going to remove this off this topic. You know, in the 7th century, when the Fulani, you heard me talk about this last couple of weeks here, when the Fulani, the Wolof, the Hapular, they were, I think Mende were there, Bambara, all of these brothers were taken into Andalus. This is 711. What did the Visigoths say when they saw these black folk? They talked about their skin color. They talked about their body build. They said they had the sword and they had a short knife. And they said they had turbans and they had face veils. Do your research. This is what our brothers have been wearing this since the 7th century. This is why this comment here has no clout. So, brothers and sisters, I will say to you now that this type of situation like this is not good. And, you know, when you have these kind of people, but nevertheless, you got my jest here about the African passport, brothers and sisters. We have to do something to get this. We have to, brothers and sisters, okay? We have to push this. Because this is something that I think we need. And you heard my talk today, and I was a little longer than I wanted, but I wanted to make my points to you about this, and I'm hoping that you get something out of this and to get you to think. This is what I try to do as an elder, try to get you to think, and also a historian of Africa, and also a historian of Islam as well. And so I try to get you to think and to get you to ponder. And I'm always thinking on the benefits of my people. That's why I always try to educate, because I want us. We are not educated enough. I'm not talking about mathematics. I'm not talking about the mathematics and so forth that you learned in LA or in Boston, Massachusetts, or in London, England. We're not talking about that. We're talking about your history yourself. We're very ignorant of that. So I try to bridge that gap and give you this, to instill this pride in you that you are Fulani, that you're Mende, or you Hausa, or you Igbo, or any of the ethnic groups here. See, so I try to give that to you to help you. This was given to me by my uncle when I was a boy. He started talking to me. I was a little boy. I started hearing him talking about Africa, my uncle. And he talked about Africa all the way until I was a young man, until he passed on. So I had that training already instilled in me. Okay, so this is why this is important, a talk like this to get us to think. And that's what I'm doing here, brothers and sisters. You may agree with me or disagree. I understand, no problem. And inshallah ta'ala, I will cover the rest of the segment on the Fulani and what's going on and so forth and so on in a couple of days, inshallah ta'ala, and I'll get back on that. But I had to talk about the passport today, brothers and sisters. So I know I was long. Please forgive me for that. And those who will see this in the future, please pass this on. If you like my talks, please subscribe and whatnot and so forth. And be stern against the enemies. They will come after you. Be stern against the enemies. Don't buckle down. Learn your history. Be proud that you are African. Be proud that you are a part of a family and you have kindred here on this continent. Be proud of that. Don't be ashamed of that. Get your DNA done. It's important, brothers and sisters. I heard African American sister say here about a month ago that she didn't need it. And she said, wherever she feels she goes, she's this. Well, I said to her, yeah, okay. Yeah, that could be okay. But don't you want to know about your great-great-grandmother or grandfather, where they came from, and their history and their culture? And she didn't want that. She said, I want it, but I saw other things in her, but I won't get into that. You should, because once you learn that you're Fulani, for instance, and you start learning your history, you start to have this pride. This is what we want. You start learning that you from the Akan people, or you from the Asante people in Ghana, or you from the Mende people, or the Kampeli people, or Wolof or Jollof, Mandinka. There's a lot of great ethnic groups here, and you belong to somebody. Tuareg, you belong to somebody. You should claim that history, brothers and sisters. Claim it, adopt it, and it'll be refreshing and rewarding for you when you do that. So I will leave you with that, my brothers and sisters, and until another day, inshallah ta'ala, salamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.